for your biology exam. So I have planned in this PowerPoint. Accordingly, I have put the notes as well as some questions related to that particular question. So as you know that you're going to have 30 questions, and according to your hierarchy, this is a question which they want you to focus on. This is the learning outcome. Identify the main functions of the human reproductive system, and they want you to focus on figure 1, page 200. So this is figure 1. So your first question would be related to the male reproductive system. So here, you should know the labeling of the male reproductive system, the functions of the various parts, and then like there could be any question related to that. So you should know that. So the main functions, firstly, what are the main functions of the human reproductive system? So human reproductive system, its main functions are to reproduce and continuation of human species, to produce offsprings, that is the next generation, and to produce the gametes, sex cells, which we call gametes. And there are two gametes, like males sperm and females the ova or the egg. So these are the functions of the human reproductive system. It is responsible for making reproductive cells and enabling reproduction so humans can continue from one generation to the next. So this is a figure 1. It illustrates the male reproductive structures. The main reproductive structure of the male are the testes. These are the two testes here, and these are located outside the body cavity in a pouch. They are outside the body cavity in a pouch which is called scrotum. Now, why are they located outside the body? Because this can keep the temperature lower than the normal body temperature, which is 37 degrees Celsius. So since the average body temperature is 37 degrees Celsius, if this pouch, since it is outside the body, it is a little lower, it is at a little lower temperature than the body temperature. And this is required for the development of sperm. So this is one way to keep it at a lower temperature so that the sperms could develop. Because the scrotum is located outside of the body cavity, it is several degrees cooler. This makes the environment suitable for development of normal uh, sperms. So you have to remember that the testes are located in the scrotum. Then here you see is the epididymis, this coil structure over the testis epididymis. Then it leads to two tubes which are going up. These are the vas deferens. They join together, and they are then they are in the penis and open outside through the urethra. So you should know the structure of this. So here are some of the functions. So urethra is a tube that carries both semen and urine outside the body through the penis. The two vas deferens join together and enter the urethra. So these are the two vas deferens. What does the epididymis do now? Epididymis is here above the testis. It is a structure located on top of the testis, and here the sperms, they become mature. So they mature here. They're produced in the testis, but they come here and they mature in the epididymis. Remember that. Then vas deferens, it is a duct which leads away from the testis, and the sperms travel through vas deferens. Then there is a gland here which is called um, the prostate gland and the bulbourethral glands. So this is the bulbourethral gland and the prostate gland. So here you can see these two glands. So they contribute to the alkaline solution. It neutralizes the acidic condition so that the sperm might encounter in the urethra and the female reproductive tract. So they are making it alkaline. Then there are seminal vesicles which are present here. You can see these are the seminal vesicles here. Here, this structure, this two, they contribute over half of the semen. It secretes sugar. Now, they have like more than the semen. Half of it is contributed by these. It has sugar, which is giving energy. and it has also other nutrients like proteins and enzymes for the sperm. So this I already told you about the testis and the scrotum. So this is the first question. Here I've given you many questions with the answers. Just go through them. Some of them have been asked in the previous years, so you'll get to know what type of questions can. See this labeling. So you should know which part is labeled so that you can answer any question related to them. These are all questions based on the question one, the explanation one, which I gave you. Then for question number 2, you have to describe the structure of sperm cell and the egg cell. So they have asked you to focus on figure 2. This is figure 2, which is the sperm cell. So this is a sperm cell. It has a head, a middle piece, and a tail. This head, on the tip of the head is the acrosome, and then there is a nucleus. It is 5 micrometer long. Middle ear 6 micrometer, and the tail is very long, 55 micrometers long. So you should be able to identify the parts. Sperms are produced in the testis. They develop in the testis in the seminiferous tubules. If you go back to this figure here, you can see that the testis has this part here. You can see the seminiferous tubules. So the sperms they develop in the testis in the seminiferous tubules. It produces 100 to 200 million sperms each day. Then they go to the epididymis. I told you about the epididymis. It is on top of the testis and they mature here. The sperms, they are stored here and they mature here. Then when they are released from the body, they pass through the vas deferens. They go along the vas deferens, and there are 2 vas deferens which enter the urethra, and they go out of the body through the urethra. It's a common passage, and the sperms are in the semen, which is a nourishing fluid, because sperms require nourishing fluid so that they can survive and to fertilize the egg. So semen is the fluid that contains the sperm. It has nourishment and other fluids for male reproductive glands. The vesicles contribute to over half of the semen, which secretes sugar need for energy, also provides nutrients, proteins, and enzymes. The prostate gland and bulbourethral, they make it alkaline. We just discussed it in the previous slide. These are the questions based on the structure of the sperm. Then we come to question number 3. It says, explain how hormones regulate the male reproductive system, include testosterone, GnRH, FSH, and LH. So this figure is important. Now here you should be able to, firstly you should know this is the hypothalamus and it is producing GnRH. This is producing here the anterior pituitary gland and the posterior pituitary gland, and they are producing FSH and LH, which are released in the blood. So let's study what is it about. So testosterone is a hormone. It is a male hormone, and it is made in the testis, necessary for the production of sperm. So testosterone is required for the production of sperm, and it is made in the testis. It also helps in the development of male secondary sex characteristics, like which are seen at puberty, like hair on the face, chest, broad shoulders, increased muscle development, deeper voice. All these characteristics are also they are influenced by the testosterone. Now, what happens? There are 3 hormones which influence testosterone production. Remember, there are 3 hormones which are influencing the production of testosterone. What are these 3? Firstly, the hypothalamus in the brain, it produces GnRH. Now, GnRH is it is the gonadotropin releasing hormone. Gonadotropin releasing hormone. It is called GnRH. It acts on the anterior pituitary gland and it stimulates the production. It stimulates the production of FSH and LH. Now, what is FSH? FSH is follicle stimulating hormone, and LH is luteinizing hormone. Both these, they travel through the blood from the pituitary gland to the testes. They come to the testes, these two hormones. FSH, what does it do? It promotes the production of sperm. FSH is promoting sperm production, and LH is stimulating the production and secretion of testosterone. So both these are. So 3 hormones are there which are responsible for the sperm production and testosterone. So you should remember this. Levels of male hormones are regulated by negative feedback system. That is, it starts in the hypothalamus. If there is an increased level of testosterone in the blood, they are detected by the cells and the hypothalamus, in the hypothalamus and anterior pituitary gland, and the production of LH and FSH is decreased. So if the testosterone is there in the blood, it is detected and the production of these two hormones becomes less. If the level of testosterone goes down, drops, then the body responds by making more of LH and FSH. So this is about this figure. Here are questions related to it, like which hormone is responsible for muscular development in males? That's testosterone. What is the result of FSH? Promotes production of sperm. Which of the following hormones stimulates the gland shown in this image? So it is which hormone? Gonadotropin releasing hormone or GnDRH. Which of the following is the effect of FSH? Again, the same thing. Sperm production. These are from previous years. Which of the following is an effect of hormone testosterone? Sperm production. Which hormone stimulates the production of secretion of testosterone? Is LH. So these are the questions related to that. So that's question 4. Now question 4 is asking you about female reproductive system. So here you should know the structure of the female reproductive system and the labeling and functions of the female reproductive system. So the female reproductive cell is the egg cell, and the egg cell is produced in the ovaries. Here is the ovary. This is the ovary. So inside the ovary, the egg cell forms. Inside each ovary, there are oocytes. Oocytes are present, and these oocytes, they are immature eggs. Immature eggs are called oocytes. Once every 28 days, oocyte is stimulated and an egg is formed, which is called an ovum. So we call the egg, we call it an ovum. It is formed. This ovum, it is surrounded by some cells which are called follicle cells. They protect and nourish the ovum. After the egg is released from the ovary, it goes through this oviduct. This is the oviduct. So the oviduct takes the ovum and it connects to the uterus. This is the uterus. The uterus or womb is where the baby develops before birth. Now, the lower end of the uterus is called the cervix. This is the cervix. The lower end is called the cervix. At the lower end of the uterus has a narrow opening, which is called the vagina. This leads outside of the female's body. So remember the parts and the functions. So this is the ovary, oviduct, uterus, cervix, and vagina. Then you should know the follicles and the oocyte and ovum. This is in detail, this structure. So if we talk about oviduct, it is the tube which connects the ovary to the uterus through which the egg travels. Here fertilization takes place. Now you know what is fertilization? The fusion of the egg cell and the sperm cell is called fertilization. This fertilization takes place where? In the oviduct here, in the oviduct. And ovary is the site of production of egg cell. Egg cell is produced in the ovary and the egg cell is called the ovum. Uterus is the womb, an area where the fetus is going to develop. The baby is going to develop. Cervix is the lower end and vagina is the last part. which leads outside the female body. Now here are some questions. Figure below illustrates the female. Which of the following number represents ovary? So this is the ovary. This is the oviduct. Here you have the uterus, cervix, and vagina. The tube that transports an egg released from an ovary to the uterus is called oviduct. Location of the baby development before birth, uterus. Female reproductive gland, ovaries. Tube that connects the ovary, oviduct. Lower end of the uterus, cervix, leads to the outside ovum. Mature egg, oocyte. So these are some questions. Question number 5 is about the menstrual cycle. Table 1, figure 2.1. There would be a question from here. So menstrual cycle lasts about 28 days. The entire menstrual cycle can be divided into 3 phases. The first is a flow phase, second is a follicular phase, and the third is a luteal phase. Flow phase, follicular phase, and luteal phase. So what happens in the flow phase? The cycle is like the whole 3 things is 28 days. Flow phase is the day 1 of the menstrual cycle. When the menstrual cycle begins, it is the first day of flow phase. When the menstrual flow begins. What is menstrual flow? Menstrual flow is the shedding of blood, mucus, and epithelial cells from the endometrium, the inner lining of the uterus or the tissue that lines. It is called the endometrium. So the shedding of the mucus and epithelial cells from the endometrium is called the menstrual flow. The endometrium is where the embryo implants if fertilization of the egg occurs. If fertilization takes place, it is going to fix itself, implant itself in the endometrium. Because an embryo needs oxygen and nutrients, the endometrium has a blood supply. So you can see the endometrium has a lot of blood supply because if the embryo is going to implant itself, it needs oxygen and nutrients. Now, during menstruation, bleeding occurs as the outer layers of the endometrium tear away and blood vessels that supply the endometrium are ruptured. So that's why bleeding occurs. Around day 5, repair of the endometrium lining begins. So day 1, flow starts. Day 5, repair starts. It becomes thicker as the cycle continues. So day 1 is beginning and day 5 is repair. Okay. Then we come to the follicular phase. What's happening in the follicular phase? This is this one. It is from 6 to 14 days. During the menstrual cycle, changes also occur in the ovaries. What's happening? Beginning of the menstrual cycle, when estrogen levels are low, the anterior pituitary begins to increase. We've done this for the male reproduction. It's the same for the female also. Estrogen is the female hormone. So when the estrogen level goes down, the anterior pituitary is going to produce more LH and FSH. And when this is formed, this stimulates few follicles which start maturing in the ovary. Cells in the follicles then begin to produce estrogen. Then they will start, see the follicle starts maturing, and then they start the production of estrogen. So here you can see estrogen is the red one, so it starts producing estrogen because the FSH and LH it starts forming estrogen. A small amount of progesterone inside each follicle is an immature egg. The oocyte is formed. So what is happening? Cells in the follicles, they begin to produce estrogen as well as progesterone. Here progesterone is the blue one. You can see it is also producing progesterone. So they are producing two things, estrogen and progesterone inside each follicle. Is an immature egg. So inside the follicle is an egg. When it is immature, we call it oocyte. After about a week, only one of the growing follicles remains. So only one will remain. The remaining follicle continues to grow and it secretes estrogen. So when it grows here, it will secrete estrogen. Now when estrogen is more, the FH and the LH FSH and LH, they will become low because estrogen has gone up as a negative feedback. So on about day 12, the high level of estrogen causes the anterior pituitary gland to release a lot of surge of LH. This rapid release of large quantity of LH causes the follicle to rupture and ovulation occurs. So when does ovulation occur? On about day 12. So if you can see here in short, follicular phase, what's happening? Changes in the ovaries occurring, low estrogen level in the beginning of the cycle, more FS and LH stimulates maturation of the follicle cells. Then the developing follicle cells produce estrogen and less progesterone. So FSH and LH levels are low. Only one follicle containing egg matures. Then on day 14, 12 to 14, on day 14, high amount of LH is released. And when high amount of LH is released, it ruptures the follicle and ovulation occurs. So here you see ovulation occurs on day 14, 15. So this is the luteal phase will start. So in the luteal phase, this is the luteal phase. You should know the number of days. You should check the hormone level. You should see what's happening to the ovary. Like first it was oocyte, then it is developing. And also you should see what's happening to the endometrium. So this figure is telling you that. After ovulation, follicle change. The cells of the follicle change. The follicle is transformed into a structure called the corpus luteum. Now, the follicle, the ovum has gone out. Now, follicle is left. This follicle, it is changed into a structure which is called the corpus luteum. This is the corpus luteum. It will degenerate. It will just degenerate as the menstrual cycle will continue. It produces a high amount of progesterone and a little estrogen also, which keep levels of LH and FSH low because both are being produced. Too much of progesterone and some estrogen. So these two hormones, LH and FSH, will remain low. Here you can see they will start be low. Toward the end of the cycle, the corpus luteum breaks down and it no longer produces progesterone and estrogen. After this, it will break down. And when it breaks down, it is not going to produce progesterone and estrogen. This results in a rapid decrease in these levels, and a rapid decrease triggers detachment of the endometrium. Because there is a decrease of the progesterone, it starts like falling down. And because of this decrease, the endometrium will detach and the flow phase will start. So you have to remember the 3 phases of the menstrual cycle. This is in short what's happening in the luteal phase. Corpus luteum is formed, high level of progesterone. So LH and FSH becomes less. Corpus luteum breaks down, triggers detachment of the endometrium. Now what happens? If the egg is fertilized, then the menstrual cycle will not begin. The progesterone levels remain high and increase the blood supply to the endometrium. The corpus luteum does not degenerate. This will not degenerate, and hormone levels do not drop. The endometrium accumulates lipids and begins secreting a fluid so that the embryo can develop. Some questions about the flow phase, what's happening in the hormone changes, uterine changes, changes in the uterus, and the ovary changes. So these 3 phases. Here you can see what's happening. The endometrium tears away. So these are, let's go through these points. Here are some questions. How many days does stage 1 take? So 1 to 5. These are all questions based on this. Then we come to question number 6, fertilization. Now, what is fertilization? I already told you. The fusion of the male cell, that is the sperm, and the ovum. Fertilization occurs where? In the oviduct, upper portion of an oviduct near the ovary. Sperm enters the vagina and it can travel, it can survive for around 48 hours. Then an unfertilized egg can survive. Okay, so this is Sperm can survive for 48 hours, but an unfertilized egg can only survive for 24 hours. So fertilization can happen if when the sperm will fuse with the ovum, then there will be fertilization. Overall, there is a relative short time when the fertilization can occur successfully. A single sperm cannot. Now, if you see this figure, you can see that there are so many sperms which are coming in towards the ovum. One single is going to enter, only one. But all are required for making this layer weak. A single sperm cannot penetrate the plasma membrane of human egg. Plasma membrane, it cannot. So what happens? Several hundred sperm, they bombard the egg. They're bombarding the egg of the, and the enzymes inside the acrosome. I told you the tip of the sperm cell is the acrosome. So the tip of the sperm is, it has specialized lysosomes. What is present there? Lysosomes. And that is called an acrosome. When they bombard the egg, inside the enzymes that are inside the acrosome, the lysosomes, they make the plasma membrane weak. And when they make it weak, one of the sperms will enter. The plasma membrane is weak enough that one sperm can go inside. And once it enters, immediately the egg forms a barrier and does not let other sperms from entering the fertilized eggs. Now it is a fertilized egg. These are the questions. Question number 7. Major events that occur in the first week. Now fertilization. After fertilization, what happens? You know this is, it will fertilize here and then it will travel and going to implant. And so what happened in the first week? Fertilized egg is now called a zygote. After fertilization, we don't call it ovum, we call it zygote. It moves through the oviduct, and by smooth muscle contraction and cilia, it moves towards the oviduct. Around 30 hours after fertilization, after 30 hours, the zygote undergoes its first division, which is mitosis. It continues, and by the third day, the embryo leaves the oviduct and enters the. So by the third day, it comes here. 30 hours, after 30 hours, it will start dividing. And by the third day, it is going to enter the uterus. The embryo is described as morula. At this time, we call it morula because it's a ball of cells. Division has already started. By the 5th day, morula has developed into blastocyst. Now, this is a blastocyst. So, morula develops into a blastocyst by the 5th day. The blastocyst attaches to the endometrium around the 6th. Now, here it will attach around the 6th day and is fully implanted by day 10. So, by day 10, it's fixed. The blastocyst is not completely hollow. It can have mass of cells on one side. Inside, there's a group of cells called the inner cell mass. The inner cell mass eventually will become the embryo. Now here it is one single. It divides to form two, and in this case, there will be identical twins. So this is what's happening in the first week. 30 hours, mitosis begins. Third day, embryo leaves the oviduct and morula is formed by division. Then 5th day, morula will form into a blastocyst. By the blastocyst attaches to the endometrium around the 6th day, and by day 10, it is fully implanted into the endometrium. So this is in short. Day 2, 30 hours, the zygote undergoes its first mitosis. Day 3, morula. Day 5, blastocyst. Day 6, implantation, and day 10, fully implanted. Blastocyst is not completely hollow. I just told you about this. These are the questions about what is morula, blastocyst, the order. Okay. Then we come to the roles of the placenta. This is the placenta here. This is the embryo. Now it is the embryo is surrounded by 4 membranes. We call them 4 extra embryonic membranes. The first one is amnion, this one, amnion. After amnion is the chorion. Then there is this yellow one, the yolk sac and the allantois. They are important in development. So this is where the exchange of substances takes place between the mother and the fetus. Nutrients, oxygen, and waste diffuse across maternal and fetal blood vessels and are carried to and from the fetus through the umbilical cord. So there is a fetal side and there is a maternal side. This is the maternal vein and this is the maternal artery. So fetal capillaries are the exchange of substances taking place through this. As an embryo develops, the chorionic villi begin to grow into the uterine fold. The villi of the chorion, they start growing here. You see this. This is the fetal. The pink one is the fetal portion and this side, this one is the maternal portion. Amniotic fluid, what is the work of amniotic fluid? It protects, cushions, and insulates the developing fetus. Fetal capillaries exchange nutrients, oxygen, and waste between the fetus and the mother. So here you're going to talk about the placenta. This is the same thing about placenta. 2 weeks after fertilization, tiny finger-like projections of the chorion, called chorionic villi, they begin to grow into the wall of the uterus. The placenta is the organ that provides food and oxygen and removes waste. It has 2 surfaces, a fetal side from the chorion that faces the fetus and a maternal side that faces the uterus, uterine tissue. It is completely formed. When it is completely formed, it is 15 to 20 centimeters in diameter, 2.5 centimeter thick, and it is around 0.45 kg. The umbilical cord containing blood vessels serves as a connection between fetus and the mother. What does the placenta do? It regulates what is going to pass from mother to the fetus and from fetus to the mother. Oxygen and nutrients travel from the mother to the fetus. Now remember this oxygen and nutrients. Alcohol, drugs, and the human HIV virus, immunodeficiency virus, can also pass through the placenta to the fetus. Waste products and carbon dioxide travel from fetus to mother. Blood cells do not pass through the placenta. So mother's antibodies pass to the fetus and help protect the newborn until its immune system starts working. These are the questions. Then question 9 will ask you about the question on the 3 trimesters of development. This figure is very important. They give you any one picture and they ask you how many week fetus is it. So you have to identify. This one is only 4 weeks. The second one is 5 to 6 weeks. The third one is 7 to 8 weeks. Then 9 to 10 weeks. You can see and this is the last one, 12 weeks. So first trimester, all tissues, organs, and organ systems began to develop in the first trimester. Means what? 3 months. So the development takes place 266 days from fertilization to birth. It's divided into 3 trimesters. During this time, zygote grows from a single cell into a baby. So first trimester, tissues, organs, and organ systems develop. First 2 weeks of development, the mother might not even realize that she is pregnant. At the end of 8 weeks, that means 2 months, the embryo is called a fetus. So this you should know. When do we call the embryo fetus? So embryo is called a fetus at the end of 8 weeks. All of the organ systems have begun to form. By the end of the first trimester, the fetus can move its arms, fingers, and toes and makes facial expressions. So you can see here. Fingerprints are also present. So this is happening in the first trimester, that is the first 3 months. Second trimester, primary period of growth. It's growing, 18 to 20 weeks. Fetal heartbeat might be heard. So heartbeat. Then capable of sucking its thumb and can develop hiccups. Mother might feel a fluttering sensation or feel kicks. Hair form. Eyes will open during this period, second trimester. The fetus might be able to survive outside the mother's mother's uterus with the aid of medical intervention, but chances will be very not so for survival are not very high. So the baby's lungs have not developed fully, so the respiratory failure is at great risk. Lungs will develop in the third trimester. It continues to grow at a rapid rate. Fat accumulates under the skin. Now, here what's happening? Fat is accumulating. Adequate protein intake by the mother is important during this time. Rapid amount of brain growth. Nerve cells are being formed. So brain growth is taking place in third trimester. New nerve cells in the brain are forming at a rate of 250,000 cells in 1 minute. The fetus now responds to sounds, music, and also mother's voice. So here's a summary of the 3 trimesters. Here organ systems are forming, legs, fingers, and toes. Period of marked growth, hair forms, eyes open. It cannot maintain a constant body temperature, but because lungs are not fully developed. Rapid growth here, fat accumulates, rapid development of nerve cells. So these are the causes of there could be any defect during the pregnancy. So I told you these pictures, they come which number below the picture represents fetus 12 weeks. So this is 12 weeks, represents 9 to 10 weeks. So you should know, okay, which one try to identify. What happens in the third trimester? These are all questions related to that. Question number 10. What are the techniques used to diagnose? So ultrasound. We can identify condition in the fetus by using ultrasound. What is ultrasound? Sound waves. They are bounced off the fetus, converted into light images and seen on the monitor. So fetus, heart, brain, spinal cord and hands, fingers and feet and toes can be seen. It is used to determine if the fetus is growing properly, the position of the fetus in the uterus and the gender of the fetus. So we can see it with the help of ultrasound. It can measure the size of the fetus head and length of the bone of femur. So this is what ultrasound does. Then we have another one which is called your figure 12. They have asked. So you should know what is amniocentesis. This is amniocentesis. It is a prenatal test during amniocentesis performed in the second trimester. It is formed in the second. A needle is inserted through the abdomen of the female and the mother, and fluid from this amniotic sac is removed and it is analyzed. Then they perform tests to measure enzyme levels. Fetal cells can be examined by karyotype, DNA analysis. So the procedure does not have risks, but injury to the fetus from the needle can happen. Infection of the uterus and a small risk of miscarriage. So this is ultrasound. We use this scanner, and this is how amniocentesis is removed from the amniotic. So this is what you have to remember here. Then there is another one which is chorionic Willis sampling, performed during the first trimester. Small tube here is it's called the catheter. It is inserted through the vagina and the cervix of the mother. Cells from the chorion are removed and they're analyzed by karyotyping. So this is a karyotype when they see the different chromosomes. This is a karyotype. So here are the questions. Which tool is commonly used during amniocentesis? What is it, amniocentesis? All mostly questions on amniocentesis. So go through these questions. So in this part of the explanation, we'll do only 10 questions. In part 2, I'm going to continue with 11. From question number 11 to question number 20. And then I'll make it in 3 parts so it's easier for you to. So now after you have watched this video, go and do the questions on your LMS and on forms. Okay. Aliza, आया नहीं खाना?